quite a bit around how to host a Zoom meeting. We did this session this morning with about 35 clergy, and there was a lot to get through, a lot of really good questions asked. With a smaller group tonight, it's probably, we can afford to just find out what are the main things that we want to cover, because, we spent quite a bit of time and it was very worthwhile, but it might just actually be worthwhile. There's just a few of us on the call, find out if there are any specific things that you would like covered this evening. So Philip wants to get the advanced version. Marion, Barry, Lawrence.
I'm a beginner.
Yep.
But I have done, our church has been doing all our Zoom services, and at some point I'll be the host. I'm on the church warden. Plus we've been doing morning, there's been a lot of Zooming happening, but I haven't been the person, I haven't been volunteering to host because I'm not very brave. Anyway, it'll come soon.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, good to know. Barry, was there anything specific you're interested in?
Everything.
Excellent. Okay, we can do everything. Lawrence?
Yes, I am a beginner too with L plate.
Okay, very good. Rafaela, welcome. Please let me know by chat or turn your microphone on if there's anything that you would like specifically covered this evening. Just to give you a bit of an overview, I'll just sort of give a bit of a background to Zoom and how it can be used, particularly in our churches. We'll discuss the pricing of it if that's useful for you. We'll look at what it's like as a user, which most of you have probably had a little bit of experience, but I thought we'd just be good to talk through that sort of in a logical order.
Right.
And then welcome, Rafaela.
Thank you.
I was going to have a quick chat about privacy and security, and then, do sort of a hands-on and show you what it is to set up a meeting, when you're in the meeting, how to sort of host and coordinate and manage people, and then some more advanced stuff. So Philip, I think most of the group are probably more on the beginner stage, and I think it is worthwhile covering to more of the basics of it. But I can, when we get towards the end, I can show you some more advanced things, or if you'd rather book a time, maybe next week, we can go through that if that's a better use of your time. Great. Okay, how about I quickly pray and then let's get started. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this season of the year, for Easter, for Jesus Christ and your sacrifice. And I pray that tonight, as we explore Zoom and how we can use it well to love and serve our churches, Lord, that you will just inspire us with ideas on how we can do this well, how we can love well, and how we can spread your good news through this technology. Amen.
Amen.
Great. So let's keep going. You can see my slides, I'm assuming. Yes?
Yes.
Excellent. Great.
Yeah.
Good. So look, I'll try and move through this fairly quickly. The three main uses, particularly in church for Zoom, are to run meetings, which is its primary purpose in the first place. It's a work tool that lots of corporations, businesses use, and in church circles, staff use it between each other. Meetings are set, with key volunteers to be planning things and functions. Secondly, lots of small groups are using Zoom because, like you see this evening, you see each other's faces, you can hear each other. It's sort of as close as you can get to being in the same room together without actually being in the same room. There's intimacy, friendship, sharing, fun. People do dinner parties now over Zoom. It's, quite amazing, really. Like, this is just the new way of connecting with each other. And thirdly, which is probably, the main interest of this session, is running services. And when you run a service on Zoom, even on a free account, you can have up to 100 people in the room, or with their cameras on if they want to, or with their microphones on. It's not dissimilar to a Sunday service where you're there in front and you might be presenting, but you also get that face-to-face interaction. You can see people's responses, and you can have dialogue as well. So it's a very versatile tool. If we think about it, this wasn't even possible in the mainstream, 5 or 10 years ago. Now we've got the processing power, we've got this technological accessibility, there's smartphone dominance. Most Australian adults have a smartphone, and now also the internet data, the capacity has gone up for that and the costs have gone down. All these things together make this technology so accessible for Australians, for our audience. It's amazing. It's an incredible resource we have at our fingertips in this time. And if any time in history, what an amazing time to be isolated yet be able to connect in this way. Yeah. So, so I'll quickly discuss, why should we use Zoom? Because there are lots of video platforms, and and each has different benefits, pros and cons, different price points, preferences, different limitations, and displays and ways of controlling things as well. So for Zoom, if it's compared to other platforms, it is very accessible because it's available on the computer, on people's phones, as a smartphone app. And for people who don't even have the internet, there's the capability to dial in. We had one clergy today who dialed in to be able to practice and hear it on his phone, and it came through very clear for him. I would assume that in the email that was sent out to you after you registered, it had the Join Now link, and then also had a series of phone numbers, which I think I've got a slide for that here. So you would have received a series of Australian phone numbers because I had that setting in place, and we'll talk through that a little bit later. But it's very accessible for people regardless of their level of technical capability. So it does tick a lot of boxes in that way. It does create that feeling of connection, as we said. It's easily scalable, so you can have a conversation with one person in a quick meeting. You can have 100 people. You could scale over 1,000, and really, it's just how much you spend that determines that. And so, because of that, it has quite a reasonable cost. When we look at the costing, sorry, jumping around a little bit this evening, the pricing of it is you can have up to 100 people on the call for free, up to 40 minutes long for a meeting. Now, Zoom have relaxed that limit a little bit because of COVID-19, but you probably don't want to rely on that for a Sunday service. You don't want to sort of hit the 40-minute mark and then all of a sudden everyone gets pulled off the meeting. So I would advise you to spend $21 a month and do that for the next few months, however long we have to. You don't have to subscribe to this forever. And then you don't need to worry about that limit. There's just my bottom note there on Connecting Up. That's connectingup.org is a discount technology platform for Australian and New Zealand not-for-profits. And with that, you can access that for free, and that's available for churches as well. And they have lots of different hardware and software suppliers that give discounted technology. You've got Google, Microsoft, there's many of them, and including Zoom. For Zoom, they've got this deal where you pay a flat fee of $98, which sounds like quite a bit, but then that gives you access to Zoom's rates for any of their plans at 50% off. So I can send you some links if you haven't seen that already. But even if you don't, get Zoom through Connecting Up, it's worth just signing up to Connecting Up. Yes, Marion.
We had a wardens meeting last night, and we looked at all the prices for Connecting Up. Because of the definition, we had a huge discussion on the definition of host, which you might have a slide coming up on that. and we thought we'd go with connecting up just to be doing the licensing things correctly. Anyway,
Yep.
I'll
Yep.
let you
Excellent.
keep going.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, it does help if you've got multiple hosts or people who can manage and facilitate the room, particularly just technically helping people if they get in trouble on Zoom. If you're the main person presenting on a Sunday service, you don't want to have to be dealing with technical issues in the room. If you can possibly outsource that aspect to a fairly technical capable person from your congregation to assist you with that, that will help lift the load off you quite a lot. And that was one of my main points down the track. So thanks for that, Marion. That's excellent. Any questions so far? Great, cool. Let's we'll try and keep powering through. So the user experience, which you've kind of gone through, I'll just talk that through with you. You receive a link in the first place inviting you to the meeting, and you might receive that over email, or there's a link that the administrator gets when they set up the chat room, that could be pasted into a Facebook group, or maybe onto your, if you've got an email newsletter or something like that, you paste the link on there. And there's the option to have registration or not have registration. Like we did for this particular meeting, you needed to register your name and email address. So that's an option we can turn on or off. Once that's done, on a device that's being used for Zoom for the first time, an installation needs to happen. If it's on a computer, a PC or a Mac, when they click the link to join the room, they'll need to download the client and install that first. And it's a very easy and only takes 2 or 3 minutes. Similarly, for if someone's accessing Zoom on their phone, just as a participant, they will need to install the app when they click on that link. So it's good just to let people know to do that a few minutes in advance if they're doing it for the first time before they join the call, just to allow for that time to download and install the app. Then they join the meeting. They can change their video and audio source if they've got multiple sources, such as Philip, who can change his video camera on a whim. And there's also that capability, as we said, that if people, for whatever reason can't use their, computer audio, they can also dial in if that capability has been switched on. So that's particularly good if they don't have internet, or their internet's slow, or they've got a problem with their audio on the PC.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go for it.
I'll be fast, I promise. We had our oldies joining in last Sunday by phone and they loved it. And then with the prayer meeting, they said that that Zoom was no longer letting the dial in, but that obviously is not correct.
It may have been. So the prayer meeting would probably have had a different meeting set up or scheduled for that. And you need to turn on that capability in the meeting to allow phones to dial in. So it's possible that that was switched off.
Oh, okay. No worries. Thank you.
So yeah, we're going to discuss when we get to the administration soon on, there's going to be a whole lot of settings. There are like the global default settings that are set in the account back end. And then you can then change in when you're scheduling a meeting, those settings as well. So there's a default, and you sort of have to have something switched on in the administration area before you can have it available in the meeting. So there's lots of different things.
That's okay.
We'll try and fly through a lot of that tonight.
I'll try not to interrupt.
Excellent. No, they're excellent questions. Exactly. Yeah. Great. So that's the user experience pretty much. And we discussed quickly dialing by phone. The other thing to note here is with every meeting, there's the ID for the meeting, which is a 9-digit code. And for this particular meeting, it's 648-585-341. And you'll see that like in the registration link, in the email to join the group, and in the browser. So for phone users, they need that meeting ID. The second thing that they may need is if the meeting has a password, then they'll need to also key in that password, which is a 6-digit code. We'll discuss that soon. Next, I think. So if we talk about administering Zoom.
Evan, I don't know whether you can hear me or not.
Yep, I can, Rafaela.
Excellent. I have a question also with the setup of Zoom with privacy settings.
Yep.
Will you talk about that later on as well, when you register Zoom itself?
Here we go. Yep.
Yeah, great.
So, yeah, great. So do you have a specific question around that, Rafaela?
With the I've just heard in the news lately that it needs to be set up right.
Totally. Yep, exactly. You have anticipated perfectly. Perfect segue. So, as you may have heard in the news in the last week, yeah, there've been a number of privacy concerns and security concerns because they found that people have been jumping onto meetings that they've never been invited to in the first place. So, just to sort of preface that is that no system in the world is perfectly 100% foolproof or hack-proof. Even for large companies, Google, Apple, things happen, Facebook, there's so much around Facebook in the last few years, and things can go wrong. And things, systems can be down for a little while as well. But the large companies, they have to take their security very seriously or they're going to lose a lot of people, which for them means a lot of revenue. So they've got the resources to be able to respond quickly. Last week, when all these issues came up with Zoom, the CEO was very proactive with it. He apologized. He said they're dropping all their new features that they've been working on. They're not going to work on any new features for a month, and they're going to spend the whole month securing everything they've currently got in place. And particularly, in the last month or two, Zoom has just blown open in terms of so many people who are using it. More, it's scaled beyond belief for them. So they need to put all their resources into helping that scale well so it doesn't fall over. And with that, they fixed up that security bug within 24 hours. So people were right to call it out, and the spotlight is on Zoom, and they've responded accordingly. So, what was happening, my third point there is Zoom bombing. What was happening was people were finding ways, just for fun, to be pranking, was to jump onto other people's meetings. And the two ways they did that was they either guessed the 9-digit code to jump into a meeting, or they found links in public forums to the meetings themselves, such as a Facebook public page for a church or a school or whatever it is. So then they were jumping on these calls and being complete idiots. They were taking over the audio. They were saying things that they shouldn't have said. They were turning on images and sharing their screen with pornographic images and other things like that. So that's very distressing. Especially if this is happening to young people. If there were people paying lots of money to join webinars on Zoom, has very big impact. And so for the host and for the participants, they're like, how did this happen? How do we turn this off? How do we get rid of it? And if you don't know how to handle Zoom, then it's going to be very embarrassing, which it was, of course. So what Zoom did was within 24 hours, they implemented for passwords by default to be turned on for meetings. And the second thing they did was by default, for any new scheduled meeting, was set up this thing called a waiting room, which I haven't implemented for this particular call tonight. But what the waiting room is that when someone then clicks to join the room, they get put into a waiting room first, and the host in the room receives a message saying, this person's waiting to be admitted in yes or no, and they click yes. It's like having a bouncer at the door saying, what's your name? Show me your ID. Okay, yes, you can come in. So they were very quick to put that into place. For meetings that have already been scheduled, they haven't overwritten those settings, but for any future scheduled meetings, that's the default. Okay, great.
Does that mean that the host has to be there first? Really? In that case, like say the host was running late,
Yep.
no one can come in unless the host is ready.
Well, they would just go into that waiting room, and then the host
and
would
they'd be
join, and
waiting.
then the host would, yeah, that's it.
Okay, yeah.
So
Thank you.
whether the host was in, not ready yet, or whether they were just sitting there and just preparing their slides or whatever, it all depends on the host. So again, that's another reason if you were going to have a waiting room, which you may or may not, it's just another level of security. You may want to have someone who can, administer and host that without you having to worry about it while you're doing everything else as well.
But they're defaults now.
Yeah, but you can switch it off. You can switch
Can
it
you have
off.
2 hosts at once then?
You can have multiple hosts, but
Okay.
to have multiple hosts, you need to have a pro account and you have to pay for each host. So if you have 2 or 3 hosts in your account, you're paying, $42 or $62 a month.
Yeah, thank you.
The other way around that, while we're talking about that, is you could have just one account, and it could even be free. And then you can nominate, I can nominate right now here in this meeting that you can be the host, but then that takes the rights off me of being the host.
Oh.
And that can still work because I can still be the main presenter and share my screen, but it means that you're then the person in control of kicking people out and, muting people or helping people if they've got problems. So you can do that. It's probably worth a try before you invest $60 a month. But if you just want to do that, then that's perfectly good as well. So we'll cover the what to do with participants soon, and we'll cover screen sharing a bit later as well. Let's keep moving. We're doing much better than the morning group. So setting up a meeting. In here, we'll talk about the default meeting settings, how to host a meeting. So there are 2 kinds of meetings. You can host a meeting or you can schedule a meeting. Hosting a meeting is for something you just want to sort of switch on straight away to share, if you just need to have a one-on-one meeting with someone or 1 or 2 people. Schedule a meeting is done in advance, and there are more settings that you need to prepare when you're scheduling a meeting. So what I'm going to do is we're going to prepare one on the fly. I'll need to show it to you unless you've got an account and you can log in and you want to follow and do it. Feel free on your own account, but I'll need to do that just so you can see it. Can I share my screen? Yes, I can share my screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my other screen. No, let's just do it like this. Okay, so zoom.us, oops. Zoom.us is where you go, and you'll have, if you're not logged in, you'll have a login button or a join button or something like that. I've logged in, so I can see my account. I've also got host a meeting and join a meeting. As I said, host a meeting is just for an immediate meeting. If I just need to do a quick thing with someone now, I just go host a meeting with video on and then follow that trail to invite a person into my immediate meeting. Join a meeting is so that's if you've got a code and you need to add it in. Host a meeting, which one? Schedule a meeting, sorry, it disappeared on me. Schedule a meeting is what you're going to do if you've got a meeting to add for next Sunday. So for example, let's do Easter Sunday. Topic, Easter Sunday, that's the heading. Join our church on Sunday morning can be the description at 10 a.m. Boom. Don't worry about the template. If you've got lots of different ones you're writing that are all the same, you can sort of save a template of scheduling a meeting. Probably overkill for now, unless you're sort of doing Sunday after Sunday. But let's keep going. We're going to pick Sunday, the 12th, for our meeting, and it's going to be at 10 a.m. and it will go for 1 hour. Now, our meeting won't switch off after 1 hour, but it just gives people the expectation of what the time frame of the meeting will be, the duration. We've got the time zone set by default. Now, if you're going to have, services for the next 3 months on Sunday morning at 10 a.m., you could set up a recurring meeting here and just make it weekly and go Sundays. And we're going to go do that through till the end of June the 28th, for example. Making sense so far? Yep, great. We'll turn that off for now, but you can do that. Registration required is like I did for this meeting, where I received your email address and name first. You don't have to have that. You probably don't want that if you're just sending this out to your regular congregations. Meeting ID, just leave generate automatically. That's fine. The meeting password, this is where this six-digit code is for the password for the meeting. I didn't have it on, I did have it for this meeting, but you didn't have to put in a password because the password was part of the link that you clicked on in your email when you click join meeting. So the good thing is, if you've got that link, you don't need to manually plug in the password as well, but it is still that extra level of protection for your meeting room. However, if someone is dialing in on the phone, they still will need to put in that 6-digit password code. Let's keep moving. I just suggest with all this stuff, practice it. Have a try, do it on your own, get 1 or 2 people to just test different parts of it with you if you can. Video on, that's just by default when you join a room, if the videos are going to be on for yourself as the host and for the participants. The next option is audio, whether you want people to have the ability to dial in just by phone or by the computer audio or by both. I reckon you'll probably want both. You will also, have the option to say, well, if you're dialing in by telephone, what countries do you want available? So I've selected Australia, and that's what produces those Australian phone numbers in the email that you received to be able to call in. Now, I noticed before that someone has dialed in. I guess someone did a practice run, did they? Or maybe it was somebody else. Wow, we had a mystery dialer in. Cool. Great. So then you got some other options here, such as enable join before host. So that, I think you were talking about that before, Marion. Enable join before host. Is that a bit small for you, this text?
That's all right.
Okay, cool. Mute participants upon entry might be useful. Enable the waiting room, which means the bouncer at the door. Only authenticated users can join. You probably don't want that one. And then also record the meeting automatically if you wish to record. We can talk about recording a bit later, but if you probably don't need that on to start with. You can do that when you are in the room anyway. There's a record button as the host. And then you click save, and then your meeting is there. So when you click save, which I should have done, sorry, then it would display in this list, Sunday, whatever it is, April the 12th, Easter Sunday, 10 a.m., and the meeting ID, and start. You can also edit a meeting, which I can't seem to do right now, but there's edit, and then you can just go in and change the settings as well. Now, the other thing that I really should show you at this point is in there were all the meeting settings. However, I had mentioned before that there's also account settings. So here under admin and then account management, we've got account settings. And this is like all the default settings that you're going to have for your meetings when you set them up. Philip, you got a question?
Yes, when you're setting up a scheduled meeting, how does it send out all the invites? I didn't see you putting any email addresses in.
You're absolutely right. Thank you. Let's go back to that.
Question.
So you don't actually have the ability when you're setting up the meeting. Once you've hit save and it's added the meeting, so for example, this one, this meeting now, I can then go in to view it, like to view the settings that I have in here. And under here, we've got invite attendees.
Oh,
Where
okay.
was that?
I'll go back.
Sorry,
So
I missed
now,
it.
no, that's fine. So I'm listing just the listing of the different meetings, and I can just click on the link to view the meeting details. So I'm clicking on that, and it's got all the things, the meeting ID, the password, all that stuff. And here we've got a registration URL, sorry, next to invite attendees, the registration URL, which you can just copy and paste to anyone. And you've also got this little pop-up here called copy meeting invite. And you can just copy that text and put that into an email or something like that, which includes the register link. If you haven't got registration on, you'll just get a link to the room with the password.
What do you mean by registration on? Is that
So
my registration?
Yeah, so when you registered for this event, you needed to put in your email address and your first and last name.
Yeah.
But that's optional. I did that so I could know who was going to be joining my meeting
I get
and
it
how
now.
many people to
I
expect.
saw that before.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So then you can, copy this text and put that in an email or something like that. The other thing that I can see here in this, managing this particular meeting is I've got add to calendar, which I can do for myself. And it also tells me the number of registrants, and I can then view and see who all those people are, which is you. And then there are other settings such as email, branding. So we had the logo of the Diocese logo in there, which I added, and live streaming, which is a feature that I might show you if I've got time at the end. But you also have to have that enabled in the account settings. So we'll go to the account settings part now, which again is sort of the high level default settings for everything. And there's way too many in here to show you at length now. But the main ones I'll show you are under schedule meeting and the in meeting basic stuff. So by default, we've got telephone and computer audio on. You can have, you allow people to be able to join before the host arrives and turns the meeting on.
Would you have to change, if you wanted to change these, do you have to change them when? If these are defaults, do you change them for each meeting?
You can if you wish, yeah. So you can overwrite some of them.
Or wouldn't you bother?
Well, it just depends how, flexible what you require for different meetings. So I think as much as possible, you try and set this up in here, then it just means there's less things that you need to change when you're scheduling a meeting afterwards.
But if you had a meeting scheduled, how do you put this into your scheduled meeting?
If it's already been scheduled, you'll need to go into it and adjust it manually.
Okay.
Yeah. So for example, if I turned,
How does it know it's that meeting?
I
don't worry, I'll go play. Forget the question.
Sorry.
Keep going.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's okay. No, that's fine. So I'm just trying to find key things that you probably want on. So for example, like if I turned by default, turn password off, because I just don't want to bother about it, then, then any new meetings that I create won't have a password on by default, but I can still add a password if I wish, but I have to do that manually.
Mm-hmm.
And then some other features, do we allow chat? Do we allow private chat? What else? Co-hosting. This is interesting. The screen sharing is one that we're going to be looking at is, who can share their screen. So before, like I said, one of the things that happened in the Zoom bombing was that people were sharing their screens without permission because this was set to on. So I've let you have this feature in our session tonight that you could share your screen if you wish to as a participant. And that can be very useful sometimes. Like you might have someone who's not the host who's going to do the lyrics for you or something like that. Or if you're in a meeting in parish council and someone needs to display a document or something. So you may want to have that on. Again, you can change this in the meeting, but by default, you need to say what you're going to allow.
If you change it for a meeting, does it default back afterwards?
Well, for subsequent meetings, it will still just use whatever is the account default. Yep. Can you change any of these during a meeting? So Phillips just asked me a question. Can you change any of these during a meeting? Some of them, yes. Some of them, no. It depends on what it is. The basic ones you generally can. I'm not going to go into all of these. There's too much in here. Here's the waiting room one, and here's live stream, which I'll just do a little bit later. Okay, so there's quite a lot there. Also, if we go back up to the top, there are also settings for recording meetings and for telephone. And the telephone one, so I didn't have to add Australia manually every time, I put Australia as the global dialing country here in the account settings, which meant that would be implemented in every new meeting by default. So that's a good one to have set up. Recording, there's some stuff in here. Philip, you'll find this interesting for recording and maybe others as well. There's two kinds of recording if you're wanting to record a meeting in Zoom. There's local recording and cloud recording. Local recording gets saved onto your computer after the meeting if you've had recording on. And that what you receive there is a video file, an audio file, and a text file of all the chat that's happened in the chat window. You can do cloud recording as well. What you'll need to note with that is if you've got a pro account, you've got access to 1 gig of recordings in your pro account. And if you record, 2 or 3 hour long meetings and put it into cloud recording, you'll pretty much use up your 1 gig allocation. So I would suggest doing a local recording instead. And then if you want to make that recording available down the track, publicly onto YouTube or something like that, you just upload it separately. Yes, Marion.
We have a few people who can't get on in any way, so they've been recording it and providing it to them, the service to them. We've been doing the service on Zoom and they've been recording it and giving it to people.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Cool. So they couldn't access the phone either?
No.
Okay. Yep. Do you know why?
Oh, it's complicated.
Sure. Yeah. That's fine. Yep. Another feature that I'll demonstrate later is to be able to stream it live onto Facebook Live or YouTube Live.
Oh.
And then that way, like if they can't get into Zoom or you've got more than 100 people and, they can't all participate, then they can still view it, but not have the same level of interactivity. Okay, so that's, setting up the meeting, setting your settings. Let's now, I'm going to show you, I'm going to stop sharing my screen this way. And we're back here, just in the view. We should all be able to see each other, I think. Mm-hmm. What you'll also note, which I didn't mention before, is that you can change the view up in the top right where it says speaker view. So if you have speaker view, you see one main person or the person sharing their screen and a few small thumbnail videos, and you can switch back and forth. So that's useful to let your people know. There might be times where you want everyone to be looking at each other and interacting and seeing as many faces as possible. And that will depend on how much screen space you have and how many people are on the call. So for example, today we had 30 people on the call, and on my fairly large monitor, I could only see 25 people. So I had to hit the next button to be able to see everybody else as well. Or you may want to go into presenter view, particularly if you're sharing slides or something like that. So if you just tell people to familiarize themselves between the presenter and the speaker view.
Where the interview, I can only see gallery view or speaker view up in the top right corner.
Oh, sorry. I was using the wrong word. Correct. Speaker and gallery. Sorry, I shouldn't have said presenter view. Yep, my bad. Terminology, getting mixed up with too many other things. Great. So what I'm going to do is, as the host, I'm going to show you what's on my screen right now and some of the functions here in controlling participants and controlling engagement. I can't share a screen with you because when I do, it doesn't show the Zoom window. It turns that off, which is weird. So I have to do it this way. Bear with me. So controlling participants, there's 6 of us on the line now. It's a nice even number. So down here, I've got, it'll get into view in a second, manage participants. Sorry, it's not great quality. When I click on manage participants, on the right-hand side, I've now got a participants box listing everyone who's on the call. And it shows me who's got microphones on and off, who's got cameras on and off. And from here, I can, well, firstly, I can lower Philip's hand.
Yeah, you can put me down. That's right.
I can mute him because he's being a bit of a public nuisance at the moment. I can unmute him when I forgive him. I can also stop his video. I could make him the host. So that could be the way that you transfer the host to someone. You can rename him if he's put something rude in there, like Naughty Philip or something. I can put him in the waiting room, which is like the sin bin. And if he's being an absolute nuisance, I can remove him altogether and say, see you later, mate. But I won't do that tonight. Down the bottom also, you have invite. So that will just give me the link, I hope you can see it, to copy the URL for the meeting or the invitation, as we saw before. And it's also got the meeting password down here. You've also got this function to mute all, which gives me this pop-up. And what that can do is I can turn off the ability for participants to unmute themselves. So that can be a good way of making everyone shut up and you can't hear them. And then you've got the function to unmute, get into focus, unmute all as well. And there's some other ones along here as well. There's quite a bit in there. So again, there's quite a bit to familiarize yourself with, and it's probably easier if you can delegate this task to someone else. The other things to note.
So is that when you clicked on participants, all that stuff came up, Evan?
That's correct. Manage participants here. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that's cool. So then with interaction and engagement, like we said, there's a speaker view and the gallery view, which we're just sort of bopping between here. Bang, bang. We can, there's the chat window. Has everyone seen the chat function? Yep, great. There's reactions. So often what I do is when I sort of do a bit of a poll to the group and say, who's on a laptop tonight? If you've got a webcam on, just wave to the camera. So if people have the cameras on, it's easy just to do that sort of nod your head or wave your hand or something like that. But for people who don't, such as Lawrence at the moment, Lawrence can still go to this reaction box down here and clap his hands. And he's got his thumbs up. Great work, Lawrence. He's on it. That's good. I'm glad he's still listening and participating, even though we can't see them at the moment. So they're the main ways that you can, engage with your people. Next up, sharing our screen. So I'm going to share my screen with you now, and sorry I have to do it this way until I actually share it. But what you'll see here is the options to share my screen. I've actually got 3 monitors here at the moment. The first monitor, which is what you can see yourselves. The second monitor, which is my notes for this evening. And that's just for me. And my third monitor was the presentation there. So I can share my screen. So when I'm sharing my presentation, I'm actually just sharing screen number 3.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So, and then you can also have a whiteboard feature where people, or, yourself as the host or participants can whiteboard and scribble all over Zoom. Particularly good if you're trying to take collaborative notes and concepts and stuff like that. You can also just limit the application that you want to share. So these are my windows open at the moment. I've got a File Explorer, Windows Explorer, and a few Chrome browsers. So
anything you have open will be on Zoom for you to click on.
It's available to share if you wish.
If you've got them open on your
Correct. Yeah.
screen.
Yeah. So, for a Sunday morning, you need to plan it out in advance, but you might have lyrics for 2 or 3 songs.
Yeah.
You may have a YouTube clip that you're going to share. You may, be bouncing over to another church's service. So you might have a URL open and ready to go. Yep. Some smaller churches are doing a Zoom introduction and then going over to a large church's live service and then coming back and debriefing and praying together afterwards. Yeah.
So are you working at a console with 3 screens in front of you?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. You can do it on one screen, but there's just a lot more jumping that goes on. Like you're having to switch between this app to that app when you're sharing a screen. It gets messy. There's a little bit of multitasking that happens here in what I'm doing, but I've done it a few times now. But honestly, the first time that I hosted a meeting on Zoom was last week, and now I'm teaching you. So I've got the advantage because this is what I do, even if I don't know a system inside out, which I can't know every system. I can understand it and explain it, but you can do it too. It just takes some practice. So that's an encouragement to you. So now what I want to do is I want to share my screen, but I want to share my audio as well, because if I just share my screen as it is, and I've got music playing through from YouTube or something like that, the rest of the audience won't hear it unless I turn the setting on. So share screen. Sorry, let me just rewind. I've got the share screen button here, which you should have on your panel as well, because I allowed that as an option for participants. Share screen, and I'm going to pick my screen. I'm going to make it screen number 3, which is my presentation screen. Plus, before I hit share, I'm going to turn share computer sound on, which is at the bottom left there. Now, you won't notice any different now, but you'll be able to see my screen over here, which you can see on my big screen as well. And now if I go to YouTube and we want to listen to Cornerstone, which you shouldn't do because we don't have the license to stream it live properly, but you'll be able to hear the ad. And now we go to Cornerstone. Then Jesus' blood and righteousness. Yeah? Cool.
Yeah.
Great. If I didn't have that setting on, you would have seen the video, but you wouldn't have heard it.
Oh.
If I didn't switch on share audio.
Share audio.
So I could show you that again. I'm going to stop my screen. I'm going to share it again. And down the bottom left, you can do this now too. How about you do it? You click the share screen.
Oh, yeah.
And then down that bottom left, you've got share your computer audio.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And then you would click the blue share button on the right.
So is that too if you're getting different people to come into your service and do readings? Or no, because we're all just coming in and talking. I get it. Don't worry.
Yep. But if you
Sorry.
wanted to display the Bible verse on the screen, you could have that in a PowerPoint or in a
Yeah, that's what
slideshow.
we've been doing.
Great.
Yeah.
And here's one that Philip prepared earlier.
How's that?
Yes.
How do I unshare now?
Yep, good question. So at the
I've
top of
lost
your
it.
screen,
That's a good question.
at the top of
Yeah.
your screen, you'll have a green bar that says screen sharing on, and then there'll be a red button that says stop sharing.
No, it says host your own Zoom meeting, sign up here.
No? Is there,
No, I've ended up at a different web page.
yeah, but there should be an overlay for Zoom. I'll show you on mine. I can actually stop yours because I'm the host. So I'm going to stop your sharing. I'm going
Yeah.
to turn on my sharing. And here I'm sharing my screen again.
Yeah.
But I've got here up the top, if you can see on my webcam, which you won't be able to see on your screen because it hides the Zoom stuff. But if you look at my webcam, it's got this green bar and it's got stop share.
Where?
Huh. You might need to,
Couldn't see it.
it's hard to do because when I share my screen, you can't see it. But if you see my webcam, can you see my camera?
No.
Oh, look at the pussycat.
Jeremy.
Hello, Jeremy.
You may need to change the view, Philip, from presenter view to gallery view, maybe.
He's Zoom bombing.
Jeremy needs a waiting room, I think.
The tail like that, it can zoom bomb.
Yeah. So, Philip, you can't see my screen, sorry?
I can see your screen, but I can't see your green button.
Okay. Yeah, but you can't see our faces and cameras at the moment?
Only on the thumbnail strip to the left.
Yeah, so can you see on my thumbnail strip to the left? Can you see my one?
Yeah.
I've got here, there's a green and red. Sorry, mate, you have to say that again.
How do I enlarge the thumbnail? Because it's too small for me to see what you're doing.
It's, you can resize that box with the thumbnails or not. Maybe that's on my view. It's too much. There's too many layers happening here. This isn't what you would normally have. But anyway, what I can do is, how about I send you the documentation?
I couldn't see how to stop sharing.
Yeah,
just gave me
it's tricky.
Sign up here.
Yep. So hold on.
Different page.
No, you're right. You're right. So back to screen number 3. And now, Zoom have lots of documentation online, lots of tutorials, lots of YouTube videos of people showing you how to do stuff. So here we want to know, how do you Zoom? I'll write it. How to Zoom stop sharing.
Yes.
Okay. So I've just Googled that. And the first thing that I can see was we've got some images. We've also got Zoom's official documentation on sharing your screen. It shows you what it looks like we did before, where you can select which screen you're using. And here, Philip, is what you'll see. This image here is what you will see when you are currently sharing your screen. You'll have this grey toolbar, which is towards the top. You'll have the meeting ID and this red button that says stop share.
I didn't get that when I was sharing. I
Well,
just got a big ad
Are you just on one monitor?
I've got 2 monitors.
It's possible that it was on the other monitor.
Oh, I can't share because it stops to try and repeat it.
That's okay. Just practice it afterwards on your own.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, utilize Google, utilize Zoom's documentation. You can find out everything on here. So what I think we've covered a lot. If I go back to the presentation here. I realize it's 9 o'clock right now. So if you like, I'm happy to keep going. If you need to leave now, at ease. Thank you so much for coming. I can, so this will be available on the portal, the parish portal shortly, the slides for this presentation and either this video or the one from this morning. What else do I need to tell you? My phone number. Oh, wait, I'll go to my final thoughts as well, just while we're at it. Use your computer if you're hosting a Zoom session. Don't use your phone. It'll just be impossible. If you can have 2 monitors, that will just give you more screen real estate to be able to, you know, control what you're seeing. Plus, if you've got other slides and other things like that, that you, you know, want to be able to view at the same time. If you can have someone to help you do that, use your documentation online. There's a lot on there, and practice, because you're not going to break anything. If you're just doing it by yourself or with 1 or 2 people, there's nothing that you can break. So
can you show us what the waiting rooms look like?
Oh, you just get let's Google it. You just get a screen that says you're in a waiting room. The administrator will let you in soon or something like that. Here, please wait. The meeting host will let you in soon. That's all you get.
Yeah, but from the host's end, what does a waiting room look like when you're putting us in there?
Oh, well, you're in the room like we are now, and then in the participants list, you'll see Philip wants to join the room. Allow or decline, something like that. See if there's an example. Admitting participants during a meeting.
Yes.
As a meeting host, you manage participants, and then there'll be an admit or remove button. 2 people are waiting in the room. Admit them both.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Again, it's all there online, but you're asking exactly the right questions.
All right. Got it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good. And here are my details here. If you need to contact me in the next few weeks, I'm very happy to assist you. I've got a Facebook group called Digital Systems for Churches. If that's useful to join, we've got 170 church leaders from around Australia. So you can continue the conversation and share questions and thoughts and learnings and wins in there if you wish. And I've also just launched a support program for churches. So if you'd like more details about that, it may not be necessary for you in the next few weeks, but beyond that, when the diocese, my contract finishes with the diocese, and if you want more support with your church, I've got I can help you with that as well. So just send me a message if that's of interest to you. Thank you very much. I am happy to show you a couple more things. What I had in mind was recording a session, showing you how to do that, and streaming to YouTube or Facebook. All right. I'm just going to keep barreling on, and feel free to stay or leave. So recording a session. Let me, I'll stop sharing my screen. Now, by default, can you see this recording button up in on your screen? Yes. Have you got something that says recording? Great. So every participant will know if they're being recorded in the first place. By default for this meeting, I had recording switched on to start when I started the meeting. Down the bottom, I've also got pause and stop recording. So you can pause it if there's something that you need to tell your parish council in secret, and then start it up again if you chose to record the meeting for some reason. I don't know. But that's how you do the recording. If you're doing the local recording, once I end the meeting down the bottom, then I will get a pop-up saying it's going to save the recording onto my computer. So then it goes through that process, and it will also then say, where do you want to save it? In Windows, by default, it just saves under My Documents and then a subfolder called Zoom. I can even show you what that looks like. Here's one I prepared earlier. Share screen. How deep the Father's love for us.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So under My Documents, Zoom, and this is the one that we recorded this morning, 9:55. And here's the M4A, which is the audio file, the MP4, which is the video file, and the chat text file. Yep. So that's saved on my local computer, and I can do whatever I want with that afterwards. That's easy enough. Streaming to Facebook and YouTube, it takes a little bit more effort. So in the administration account settings, you need to enable the live streaming for the platforms that you're potentially going to stream in. So I've enabled, which you may have seen before, YouTube Live and Facebook Live. Switching. Too many screens, too many windows. Just going back to my notes because there's something important I had to say. Okay, so YouTube Live requires you to set up at least 24 hours beforehand, which sounds weird, but that's what they do. So let me share my screen with you again. We're going to go to YouTube. I'm logged into YouTube in my personal account, and with YouTube, you may have a channel, for example, for your church. So St. Hilary's has a YouTube channel, which means that I can administer that channel. evaninglesos@gmail.com is my personal email address, and I've got several channels that I operate or manage. So I'm on the channel that I want, which is just my personal one. When I click create a video, you can upload a video if you may have done that before on YouTube. And you've also got the option to go live. If you're doing this for the first time with your channel or your account, you're going to get a box from YouTube that says something like, this. It takes 24 hours to activate your account for live streaming. Once it's activated, you can go there instantly. But you need to be aware of that. So if you're planning at some point down the track to do a live stream in YouTube, click that button now, and then it'll be ready for you later on. I learned that last night when I was doing a practice run. However, with my personal account, I do have access to it already. So I can go live here. I'm not going to do that just yet. What I'm going to do is stop sharing again, so then I can show you on the screen how to start that from Zoom. Because I've enabled that setting in Zoom, in the account settings, I now have this option here in the meeting as a host to be able to stream to YouTube and to Facebook.
Wow.
So I'm going to go live on YouTube. And what I get, sharing screen number 3, is this screen from YouTube saying, am I going to allow my YouTube account for Zoom to be able to access it? And I'm going to say, yep, okay. And now it's going to ask me which channel or brand that I manage will do it. I've got several here, and I'm just going to do it to my personal one because I know that it's done that 24-hour one, and that's the one that I'm happy for it to go to. If you've got your church on here, you can do that. So I'm going to do the live stream here into my personal one. Then you can give it a title, St. Paul's Easter Sunday 2020. And I can choose the privacy. It can be public which means anyone in the world can access it on YouTube, live or down the track, or I can have it as unlisted, which is probably not that useful unless you're going to add the link, for example, into your Facebook group or on your website or something. It's a little bit messy. It's probably just easier to keep it public. For the sake of our demonstration, I'm just going to go unlisted. And then I'm going to click go live. And it's preparing to live stream the meeting.
Wow.
Now, it takes approximately 20 seconds for the feed to come through, which means there's about a 20-second delay between what we're doing here and then what YouTube feeds and picks up. But to live stream the meeting.
Wow.
We've got it. Now, I haven't enabled the sound, have I? So you can't actually hear my audio, but I'm hearing myself for 20 seconds ago. And then what YouTube, but you can see that happening, can't you? You know what? I'm going to stop sharing. It's going to still keep beaming. I'm going to go share screen. I'm going to go share computer sound. Oh, I did have the sound on, I think. You did hear it, didn't you? And
Yes.
what YouTube, but you can see that happening, can't you? You know what? I'm going to stop sharing. It's going to still keep beaming. I'm going to go share screen. This is really trippy, isn't it? Oh, I did have the sound on, I think. You did hear it, didn't you?
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to mute that. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can see me. And then what you can see is down the bottom here, we can go to more, and then we can go stop live stream.
Wow.
Okay. And now I'm going to share back on YouTube, and you can see where we end. So I'm going to mute that. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can see me. And then what you can see is down the bottom here, we can go to more, and then we can... The end. That is the end of my presentation, ladies and gentlemen.
That was amazing.
It worked. So
Can I just I want to go, I know it's like, one thing that's come up at our church is people want to run like children's Christian Zoom activities, which is great. And then, of course, the child safety. I don't want to discuss this now, but the child safety and the protocols and all this, that might be in a future thing or whatever, but that ended up being quite a big discussion. But I don't want to discuss it now.
yeah, no,
Anyway.
you're absolutely right. So two things with that. You probably want and need to have the registration on for that, even if it's for your regular people. So then you've got a record of who's, you know, been, or, you know, who's coming along.
Yeah.
It's like if you've got, you know, your Sunday club and you sign people in,
Yeah.
essentially, and then you've got that physical record, well, you know, virtual record, and you can save that into your church database or church, you know, file system and have that as an archive there. Secondly, that's very timely because next Tuesday we're having a session here with me and with Dorothy Hughes, who is the Children and Families Ministry Facilitator at the Diocese, and Brian Holden, who's the Youth Ministry Consultant. All three of us are going to be on the call next Tuesday at 10 a.m. and a repeat session at 8 p.m.
Okay. Thanks for that. I don't
yep.
want to discuss it now.
No, but that's it. That's exactly the you know,
There
some
has
of the
been a
things
lot
that
of
are going to be coming
discussion.
up. Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're the things that are going to be coming up. I'm just going to pop that into the chat window for you now, which I'll also include in an email. But
Thank you very much. It's been great, Evan. I really appreciate it.
great. Thanks, Marion. We've done really well. I really thank you for your attention, for your questions. And if you need further support, just pop me an email. I'll send through the slides and a few other details after this call. And unless you got any other questions, we can say good night. Yes, Raphael.
Yep. Copyright. I mean, with live streaming is one thing. We're not allowed to use content from YouTube inserted in any services or anything. So what happens there? Is there any sort of copyright that you can get for that, or what do you do, or you just don't do it because it's not allowed?
Yeah, good question.
Good question.
I've
seen some churches have done it, then I'll just question that, whether they've used clips from YouTube.
Yeah, great. If they've got clips that they've paid for, that then are royalty free, such as, children's resources or something like that, you can use that. If there's a church that has recorded the material and has allowed it, there are some churches around Melbourne and Sydney, and I'm sure there's plenty others as well, who said, we've done a whole bunch of pre-recording in the last 3 weeks, and we're very happy for other churches to use it. As long as you've got your streaming license, you can use it. In my Facebook group, Digital Systems for Churches, there have been 2 or 3 different people offer their resources for people. There's also been a series of artists who have now released their music and said, you're allowed to stream it from YouTube. Those artists are, and I'm going to say them and I'm going to write them down here for you. Sovereign Grace Music, EMU Music, Getty Music, Colin Buchanan, Paul Coleman from the Paul Coleman Trio. He's released 2 songs for Easter. And the latest one I've heard is City of Light, which is, they're out of Sydney, Castle Hill, the big one out of there. And they've got quite a lot of material and contemporary. They're a good mix if you haven't heard of City of Light. It's sort of contemporary, but also sort of quite liturgical as well.
So how do we get on top of what's released for that use? I mean, you obviously know. I'm in a few Facebook groups which discuss this stuff. There's a worship leaders one, Australian worship leaders. There's my group. There's a Zoom streaming group. There's a church streaming group for churches. I've just heard things, and so I'm just collating these, from what I'm hearing and reading. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
EMU Music.
Yeah, they're out of Sydney as well.
Mm-hmm. And someone in another session recommended the Small Church Weebly one, whatever that is, where they were getting their music from for free and things. Small Church.
Okay.
I did Google it. They said that was quite useful.
Yep, great. So yeah, I mean, there's a number of resources out there. These particular ones are the big ones.
Yeah,
and then there are smaller churches that are just saying you can use our stuff as well.
Yeah, it's helpful.
Yeah. If there's a, public domain hymn, if, you've done it yourself, then you don't need a streaming license. If you've got someone in your church who you can pre-record or play live, again, if you've got those resources, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's useful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay. Well, hopefully I know I've covered quite a lot. I hope you've been able to sort of grasp the bits that you need. Again, just practice. Feel free to call me if you need. And yeah, Philip, if you've got anything you want to try and stump me on, feel free to do that down the track. But thank you all. Bless you. I pray that this Easter that, this opportunity that we have with this new, technology, even though it might be, hard for us to grasp, God can use this, to be able to reach more people than we have before. If not this year that well, then we'll have more practice for next year as well. So thank you and bless you, and hopefully see you in the coming weeks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good on you. Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Stuff.
Night.
Right.